Hi, this is Dan. I'm going to talk through some documents that are in your folder, the shared folder. And generally, here's a little diagram of kind of how the data is flowing through this new system we're going to do. So here's where the most accurate information. So we're going to give you the district has complete charge of or complete control over their meeting information. And that's kind of illustrated here. So we have many districts in the Area 92 and an intergroup, like Spokane Intergroup, covers multiple districts. And depending on whatever you work out between the intergroup and your district, it possibly could be the intergroup will maintain this meeting information for you. But most districts are on their own, and this shows these separate storage places where we have spreadsheets set up to gather this data. Each district has their own spreadsheet, so you don't have to worry about mixing your information with somebody else's or vice versa. So we'll create in the process of making sure that our website, area92aa.org, displays the correct meeting information. We're going to collect this data from the spreadsheets, put it together, and then allow the spreadsheet or the website to display that meeting information based on where they're looking, city or some search criteria that can be set up and varies in a couple ways. Now the spreadsheet itself is described in this document, a little PDF in here, and there's a key in here. It's called Meetings in Your District, is a spreadsheet that you're going to be working in. This describes the fields in more detail, and it's color coded. So you have the green is a required field, the blue is important, and kind of yellow is nice to have, and the white or left white is not necessary. So this goes down, this quickly we can go down like mostly the required stuff. The time is the beginning time of the meeting, and it describes that. If you can have that blank, and then it could be in the case you have a meeting that's kind of on the schedule, but you have to call somebody to make an appointment to have that meeting. That might go there. I haven't seen that happen very often. The end time, mostly if you're having, it defaults to 1 hour. So if I put 7 p.m. in the time here, the beginning time, and don't put an end time, it's going to assume that it's 1 hour meeting. The day is the day of the week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that should be spelled correctly. And the meetings that occur multiple days should be actually separate meetings. So if you have a group that meets 6 days a week, you'll have 6 rows in this spreadsheet that I'll go through here in a little bit too. The name is the name of the meeting, and it is optional, although it's valuable information for the user. If it's missing, it doesn't mean that meeting doesn't occur in this spreadsheet or go on to be displayed on the website and so on. What it does is it actually takes a location and fills it in. Really, there's some automatic import stuff. The location is the location of the meeting. A lot of times this might be a church location or an Alano club, those kinds of things. The address is it is checked by Google, so we're talking about street address, city, state, and so on. The region is kind of nice to have, especially in bigger areas or more urban areas, where you might have something that says like downtown meetings, which could be useful if somebody's searching for that. A businessman comes into town, he may want just the downtown meetings. and he doesn't know much about the area, so he's going to do that. Might be one example of that. Probably not going to happen that often. And the subregion is just another drill down from that, and they give some examples here. Now the types that are listed here, the types, there's a list here that is specific, and it tells you it should be comma separated list, and you can choose there, and there's some pretty good ideas, to get more standard on, closed has a capital C, those kinds of things. There's a few in here that I haven't seen before, like fragrance free and so on. Speaker meetings, 12-step meetings or step meetings. The notes is free form, so it's in that same vein as the type of meeting it is, or the notes section. But this is a little more free form, so you could put in here things like the first week of the month, the first Thursday, if it's a Thursday night meeting, is a coin presentation for birthdays, those kinds of things, or a potluck. If you do some regularly scheduled things, you can put in there. A lot of times you'll put in there the last meeting of the month is a birthday celebration, kind of things. Now the group, before I go there, location notes is about the location. So like if you're meeting in a church, it may have to be enter from the side door is a good example of that. So notes is about what's going on in the meeting. Location notes about what's going on with the facility that you're in. Could be parking information, could go in there too. The group is a way to for grouping contacts, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the spreadsheet. And the district is required, especially here on how we're doing that, is that we'll use that district to make sure that we know who to contact if there's a problem too. There's sub-districts. The website stuff is, I haven't seen that happen very often, though I do know some actual meetings have their own website. If they're pretty active group doing a lot of function stuff, they may have their own website and email and phone specific to that meeting. The group notes are stuff like, maybe the history of the group, when the group was formed. You could put some stuff about business meeting for the groups. So if you have a real group that has multiple meetings, the meetings may even have different names. You might want to put in there the business meeting is based on the group and where does it meet. It might be the last Monday of the month and it's in this location, those kinds of things. Updated is the last date of the change, that anything's changed for this meeting. It's optional, it's white again. And then there's some contact information, and I'll show you where that is. And again, that's very optional. So this document is to kind of give you more specifics about the columns in the spreadsheet that we're going to talk about next. So here's the spreadsheet, and I already have a meeting put into this, and here the header of this deal right here, which is coincides with the stuff that I showed you in that other document. So here's a meeting. It meets on Thursday. Excuse me, I better get all the way left here. Sorry. It starts at 7 p.m. Now this meeting, you'll notice if you are not familiar with spreadsheets, it displays 1900 here, and it says 7 p.m. up here. And when I move it, it changes it. It's just converting it into a standard military time, or a 24-hour clock instead of a 12-hour clock. So 7 p.m. is 12 plus 7, or 1900. Now the end time's optional, so if you don't have an end time, it defaults to 1 hour, or says really nothing, and we just assume that the typical meeting length is 1 hour. Now in this case, this is an hour and a half meeting, so I can put 8:30 here, or 20:30 in the 24-hour clock, and that indicates that this is an hour and a half meeting. It meets on Thursday. The name of the meeting is Skookum. It meets at St. Luke's Church. That's the name of the location. The address of the location, the region, which probably in more urban areas is more typical. And then the types is comma separated, specific spelling that was in that other document. And then notes is more free form, or you might put some stuff like the 4th week of the month is for birthday celebrations and so on. It's kind of squished in there. Location notes. Now this is about something special about this location. You might put things like, use e-store or park on the street. Don't park here. Those kinds of things can be there about how people access or interface with your facility. Now the group name you may not have in the in an organized group, that's registered with GSO. We're not really that concerned about that being correct, or a group number or anything else, where like if Skookum Group had multiple meetings, and the meetings actually could have different names, but that's somewhat unusual. So if there's nothing there that's specific to the group as a whole, just use the meeting name here. You need to have the district. That's very important. In this case, we're saying it's District 1. Then there's sub-districts if you wanted to break that down. Here's a website, which is, I have very seldom seen that, or an email specific to the meeting. And then the group notes might be, like that the Skookum Group was formed in 1956, I think. Something like that. Could be some history things. And this was updated today, which is, let's say, 2/2. And so on. Which could be handy. You may want to track when the last time there was a change to that. Now this contact information is also optional, but this can be real handy when you're keeping track of all your meetings. A lot of times you'll get somebody who said, hey, I went to find this meeting. I don't think it exists anymore. It would be nice to have somebody to call or email to ask if that's true, because sometimes they just didn't read this part about use the e-store. They were on the west side of the building and didn't see any lights or couldn't get into the building and thought that the meeting's not there. So it'd be good to have some names there to actually be able to contact somebody to verify that. Now that could be the GSR, and then you have an email and a phone number to contact, and then there's a contact 2, name, email, and phone, contact 3 to do that. Now that could be alt GSR, or sometimes you don't have a GSR, but there's somebody is consistently going to that meeting. That might be somebody you store in there. And that's about it. So I know that it's kind of a lot of work at first because you got to fill in a lot of meetings, but after this is in here, you're going to have an organized storage of your meetings. And the way this is set up, this is where this needs to be for that information to go on our website.